I'm Daniel.
I'm Brayla.
I'm Kivasha.
And I'm Siobhan. And
we're
we're
the
Fantastic
Fantastic
Four. And this is going to be our discussion about music in the Frankfurt School. So, opening remarks, anybody?
I thought it was really interesting. I think it was the piece by Adorno.
Mm-hmm.
It was really dense, and it also really made it sound like if you made music and sold it, you were like commoditizing the music, and it took all the meaning out of the music.
Mm-hmm.
Like it made it seem like you're taking, like, once you start selling art, or like if you mass produce anything that you make, then it's automatically like that takes the meaning and everything out of it, which is really weird.
I feel like in a sense that's true, but then it's not true, because when you start looking at music or even just art as like money, as a business, as a commodity, as like this is gonna make us money, then it does start to lose the meaning. Like, and you can kind of tell, like, when artists or musicians, stuff like that, only like, okay, they have to do this because the label says it's gonna make me money. You get what I'm saying? If we as listeners can kind of tell, okay, like it's kind of just losing value to us. But when art is thought of as just that art, whether it's mass produced or not, you can still see the value in it.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but still, I feel, because I mean, there are artists who just, like I said in class, they do sell out. They pander to like specific audiences because they're like, well, I can make money off of them, so they just ride that horse until it takes them into retirement. But I feel like just saying that statement, because it's such a blanket statement, that it undermines all the people who do. Like, they just do, like, I mean, yeah, they do make whole albums, but they put like a tremendous amount of themselves and work and effort into that. And I feel like them getting to release it and sell it is just part of them living the American dream. So,
Yeah.
like,
because I remember when she gave us that little quiz in class talking about what were the characteristics of like the music industry post-war and everything. And I remember advertising being one of those characteristics. So I think that's important, because based on how you advertise something is how people are going to receive it. So sometimes if things are repetitive, we might take it as being repetitive, and then it could lose value in that sense. Or if they advertise it like it's going to be the hottest thing when it drops, and then when it does, everybody's like, oh wow, like I like the meaning behind this. Like, okay, Lemonade dropped, everybody lost their mind because it was a personal story. Even though it had really great songs, it was about, Beyonce's life, like dealing with Jay-Z while he was cheating and everything else. And it's like, okay, that's something we can relate to. That's something we can understand. Like that's a marriage culture and things like that. Because I feel like us as listeners, as customers, as things like that, we have a tendency to put celebrities like on a higher pedestal. Like they're not human and go through the same things that we do. Like everyone's like, well, if Beyonce got cheated on, I can get cheated on, and things like that. So it's like, well, okay. So I think it has a little bit to do with like the advertising and how we receive things as well.
Which is funny because because Lemonade honestly there wasn't much advertisement behind that. Beyonce just came out of nowhere and dropped a whole visual album.
And it was only exclusively on time.
I know, and I feel like it was also on HBO. But I also feel like because Beyonce, like, she didn't advertise it, but she already has a brand built up for herself. Because they did mention they mentioned the article about rock stars, that branding is really important, and how it kind of, how rock stars don't get branded as rock stars anymore. But like, I still think it's a pretty big deal branding yourself, because once you have a brand, you have to live up to it. You can't deliver anything lower than the bar that you set for yourself. Because once people start expecting a lot from you, of course, that's when things do get a lot more critical and finicky, and you get more to lose, because the bigger you build yourself up, the harder the fall would be. if you happen to slip up. But but I feel like something else that resonates with people aside from advertising is the fact that the fact that you put so much work into something, like the fact Beyonce put so much work into Lemonade, the whole album, and then like all the songs and all the videos to accompany it, and then how she kept it under wraps for so long, and how she did all of this with her music and her business and her brand while also balancing being a mother and dealing with her trifling husband, like.
Yeah.
All of that, like all of it, like there's so much thought put into something that I feel like it's a gross, like it's doing them like a gross misjustice. Like you're not giving them the credit where they deserve the credit, which I have a big problem with. Like people, oh God, I don't want to sound like I'm the beehive. When people come for Beyonce, I'm like, how dare you discredit her?
No, I get the same way.
Oh yeah, you got ready to attack this congregate.
And I'm not gonna leave the bee emoji in your on all your Instagram posts
No,
for the
because
next year.
no, for real,
but,
because Team Breezy, like Chris Brown fans are the same way. Like there are some people that will say, okay, Chris Brown is really repetitive and the songs he does and the like his dancing and his performances. Me, I think Chris Brown is like one of the greatest entertainers, like music wise, performance wise, all of that. So I think part of that is like the knowledge of the industry you're going to, like people who've been in the game forever, like Beyonce, like Chris Brown, like those people like that, they know how to consistently keep the value of their music or their projects true to themselves, and as well as like keeping it escalated so it stays true to their fans as well. Like I feel like if you don't come in with some kind of knowledge about what's going on, that's how you end up going downhill and like losing yourself and losing the value within your music. You kind of just have these like puppet strings on you from your record labels and things like that.
I feel like another example of like a celebrity, well, it'll actually be kind of like the opposite of Chris Brown and Beyonce, because like when I think about like artists selling out, like I don't know why, but it's always like T-Pain comes in my mind, because it's like, okay, he used to be like one of my favorite artists like when I was younger, because no one really like used auto-tune like he did, sort of, but he used it in like every song. So like after a while, like his same old style played out. You don't hear him making music no more. Like it's old. It's old now.
Isn't he like a producer now? Or doesn't he put stuff behind the scenes?
I mean, he produces and he's behind the scenes, but as far as putting out
his own stuff, I haven't heard of him
stuff.
since like 2000.
And it's crazy because he can actually sing. Like
I've heard that.
I've seen a video on YouTube
when he did a mashup of a lot of his songs.
Yes,
yeah,
it was like,
really
oh my God. And then he was like at this open mic thing and he was singing. I was like, no. So you used auto-tune for what? Because you definitely didn't need it type thing.
But see, I feel like the Beyonce and the Chris Browns are an example. That's why I kind of said when someone's true to their music and you feel it in them, it doesn't matter like whether it's mass produced or not. Like you still get the full effect. Like my favorite artist is J. Cole.
Yes, retweet.
And he speaks like he's genuine. Like he has thousands of fans. He sells millions of records, but his music is just so pure that like that. I don't know. It just doesn't even matter. Like you can still see the art in it. And then I feel like I love Chris Brown. Like getting back to the example, he's such a good artist and he is so talented. He can sing, he can dance, he can do it all. But compared to his music that he used to make, I feel like he just doesn't do it like he used to. And I feel like that's partially because of, I guess, the new brand that he kind of made for himself, or the new music that he's like making. It's just not the same. He used to be like R&B and like soulful and stuff like, and now he's kind of like all his music is kind of like got this like dancey vibe to it. It's like fast paced, like
and even like rapping too.
Yeah, it's not old Chris, and I feel like he had to change because like of his label and stuff like that. And it's just soft.
You know what? You brought up J. Cole, and that is a perfect. Perfect. Okay, so I remember. Okay, so J. Cole, there has been like, I'm not gonna say trouble with his career, but his career has had its little skirmishes because he made his albums and he was doing it by himself, and it was all his stuff was really good, and then I remember we all know J. Cole likes Nas. And then he made Workout. I think he made Workout, and Workout kind of had a little bit of a poppy beat to it, a little more palatable for everyone across the board. And I know he caught backlash from some people because they were like, "What is this?" And then he made Let Nas Down, where he was like, "I can't believe Let Nas Down," because he hated his song because he thought he was a sellout. Now, Workout, I'm not gonna lie, it was a good song, but it did have that poppy feel to it. It wasn't as real and like as raw, just unfiltered as it usually was. And and Let Nas Down, he was like acknowledging that he did kind of sell out, and that he was like he like succumbed to the pressure because people were like, you haven't really been on any charts, and like you like the talent's there, but you're not getting the results. And he was just like, well,
and then he
I guess I need
Forest
results.
Hills Drive, and everybody lost their mind.
Oh, yeah, right. And then on top of that, there was all of his. I like all his albums, but For Your Eyes Only, I really like it. But like a lot of his fans, like I was going through the comments on YouTube, and like a lot of his fans were like, I don't like care for it, or like it's not my favorite. Like it's good, but
that's a good point that I was going to mention. Like I feel like I mentioned before, we put these celebrities on such a high pedestal, almost as if they can't go through the same things that we're going through. And that's why I think when Adorno and Horkheimer wrote this article with the music and cultural industry being deceptive, I do think that because it deceives us into thinking, okay, these people can't go through the same thing we go through. For Your Eyes Only, J. Cole's album was written for his friend who passed away, who has like a daughter and everything still. And Cole basically looks after her and everything for him. And so when he incorporated like that personal part of him, and I think that's kind of what like threw everybody off, because everybody was like, whoa, like your album kind of depressing, like you all right, everything okay at home. And I think that's part of like the record label like having some influence too, because even like Cole's an outstanding rapper. I mean, this man went double platinum with no features. Like, come on. But even with that, I think like stuff like that, because if you don't bring in other artists, they might say, okay, that's getting a little repetitive. Like bring some people with features and things like that. So,
but everyone across the board acknowledged that For Your Eyes Only was different from all everything of his other stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, but like I like For Your Eyes Only because it tells a whole story from start to finish. And then there's also like little tidbits like where he's including his stuff. And I mean, there are some songs that you can like you can like bop to a little bit. You might not be able to like if you want. Like Folding Clothes, I love that song. Like I can listen to that song while doing laundry, and I'm like, and I get the laundry done in like 15 minutes. But like, then there are songs like She's Mine that honestly make me just want to cry. But
that's on there too.
Then For Your Eyes Only, it was 8 minutes, and it could have been a whole nother 8 minutes, and I still would have enjoyed it. Like that song is beautiful.
But like and I feel like that too. I feel like it's like to some degree, music is commoditized across the board, and I feel like people grew accustomed to this. So when people start putting in, because everybody wants something like a cute little pop chart, like a cute little pop song they can dance to, or they like something they can just nod their head to. But like some artists take the music and tell a story, or they like provide a narrative, which I'm really into, because that takes more talent, that takes time, and like when I see that you're putting a portion of yourself into your music, like it translates and it resonates with me personally. I'm sure it resonates with other people too, but some people just want club mixes, and I feel like that's where the commoditizing comes from, because people like music you can dance to. People like music that they can that's catchy. Like when in the article, I forgot the name of it, but they were talking about Esther Dean and like other things. They were like, they have like a hook in the intro, and then the chorus and the pre-chorus, and like they have like 4 hooks in a song because people will listen to a song for like 7 seconds on the radio and then change it. And I feel like that's where the problem is because people tend to they might not give music a chance until there has to be something to catch your attention. Which of course, I like my songs because they catch my attention. But there are plenty of songs on my phone that I just leave my phone on shuffle, and then like some days I catch myself like I'm doing something else. Then I tune into the song halfway through, and I'm like, this is actually really great.
Yeah, like I think another thing with that too, like with the advertising and things like that, is over saturating. Like maybe you're putting too much of it out there, and that's why it's kind of being commoditized. If that's a word. Like I'm thinking of Future. Okay, Future put out his Future album and his Hendrix album back to back, so he didn't really give people time to kind of listen to one, take it in, feel how they feel. Okay, next one, and I think that kind of oversaturated his market a little bit because everyone was like, "Yo, what you doing?" Like, hold on. And
who was it that dropped the mixtape a week?
huh?
Wasn't there? I forgot. There was a rapper. He was dropping like a mixtape every week.
I don't even know.
That was Future at one point in time. He had like 3. He dropped like mixtapes like back to back to back. Like
Yeah, I remember people like there was a dude in my dorm, and he was like, he likes Future, but then he said he like started dropping the mixtape like once a week, and he was like he just stopped listening because he didn't have time to just listen to everything, and he also didn't have space on his phone to download a new mixtape every week.
Yeah, because I think us as listeners and as customers, we're purchasing this music through Apple Music, through Spotify, through all this stuff, going to the stores and buying CDs if y'all still do that. But because everything's so digital now. But I was about to say something. Oh yeah, I was saying we play a role in that too. Like they might make decisions based on what their fan base is saying or like commenting and things like that. And at the end of the day, I think like they should just be true to themselves. Because we can pretend like we music experts all we want. I ain't never had no record deal. I ain't never been to nobody's record label. I can't sing. I don't know nothing about no vocal pitch, no nothing. So I feel like they're letting that kind of get into them and make them lose themselves maybe a little bit along the way. Because I mean, the industry is crazy. Like we've seen what it's done to people throughout music in general and things like that. So I think we have to take some responsibility within ourselves as listeners and kind of like pay attention to how we receive things or how we might say and perceive things, because you never know like what kind of channels it might go through to get back. Like somebody go to Future and be like, hey, your fan said don't drop 2 albums back to back, and then we don't hear from Future for like a year because he want to give us adequate time to
but I mean, I feel like sometimes, like, because you do need time, though, at least what I've noticed with cycles of music, because an artist can drop an album, and then you give people, like, you let them know it's out, you give them time to get it, and let people, late bloomers, get into it, give it time to, like, get analyzed by everybody, people start looking up lyric meanings, give it time to, like, make its way on a chart, whatever genre it is, give it time to get on the chart. But then there's also time, I feel like there's also time dedicated for like building up anticipation for the next release. Like you need a little bit, because if everyone gets their fill, they're like, well, I'm satisfied with this. Like you need to give them time to like it and then start listening to it until they hate it and then get to that really comfortable place where like, okay, well, I like it. And then you need to give them time to just deal with that, like really that phase there, and they're like, well, now I want something more. And because then they're getting really excited for the album, they're hyping it up, and then it drops, and they buy it immediately.
And then it's on the charts.
Because then everybody buys it immediately because you gave them enough time to like really, like to digest it, and then just like yeah.
And that's why, like, when artists kind of do collaborations, because then it generates that hype as well. And that's another form of advertising. Like, when Without Warning dropped, everybody was like, oh, this Offset in 21. Oh, Gotta go buy the album because that's how I was. I went like midnight. I was like, download, listen. So I think the like having certain strategies within the music industry is good to have too. Just cause like music is very, very, very influential. It's one of the most influential things like across the country. You could instantly listen to one song and your mood be this, or another song and your mood be that, or even like people calling out for activism and things like that. Like it's so much you could do with that platform. So
that's why I don't agree with the Marxist idea that when you start selling music, it commoditizes it, because like that, I feel like that really undermines everything people do with music. That undermines the movements inspired by Lemonade, because because I get that, and I'm like, ooh, Black feminism, Black Lives Matter, minority empowerment. I'm feeling all of that, and I'm like, yes. But then, like, you're like, well, she sold it, so it doesn't mean anything anymore. And I'm like, but people are buying it, people are resonating with it, people were getting active after it. So apparently, like, I feel like just the idea that selling something, I guess in a way the music is a commodity, but it's still so much more than just that.
Yeah, I feel like there's such a overpowerment of everything that music does for us that I don't really see it as a commodity either. Like, yeah, it's sold. Okay, yeah, it's mass produced, the CDs, the copies, everything else. But like, you can receive so much from it, and with different people, you can receive different messages. Like, it's open for interpretation by everything. Nobody has come out and said, okay, music is this soul thing, it's that soul thing, it means this or it means that. And so that's why I agree with you when you said you disagree with the fact that it's like commoditized and like loses its value and things like that. I don't really think that's the case either.
I mean, at the same time, I kind of see where Mark's coming from, because just like music, because just like how we talked about art, how when it's mass produced, but still, like all art, music is art, is subject to interpretation. That's how he interprets it, and he can feel free. I just feel like it's a really narrow way of looking at things.
You look like you wanted to say something.
Any closing statements, comments? Nothing. All right.
Okay. All right. Well, that's our discussion. Thanks.
Yeah.